Hello and welcome to the Beardicus Show. My name is Beardicus and today I will be talking about Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. This is a weird game. Just the fact it exists is weird. Like, a Mario and Raving Rabbid crossover. Who thought that was a good idea? At least that was my initial thought when the game was first leaked. But as more details got leaked, I started to get more interested in the game, and then the trailer was officially revealed at E3, and it looked really good. Well, now I have the game, so let's see if that trend continues, shall we? The first thing you might notice about this game is that the opening cutscene has an odd amount of backstory for this inventor girl who has no name. Then her workshop is utterly destroyed and her invention goes missing, and that's it. She's never seen again. We don't even see a reaction to her shop being destroyed or her invention being stolen, and she never gets it back. I just hope she kept the blueprints to that thing. Also, while we're on the subject of the opening, can we talk about this rabbit that turned into a balloon? Is it just me or is that terrifying? Forget the overheating problem, put in a failsafe to prevent that from happening. If these goggles can turn living beings into inanimate objects, that is a huge oversight. And unless this inventor is actually an evil supervillain, there is no reason this device should be able to do that. Wait, what if she is a supervillain? Maybe it's a good thing she didn't get those goggles back. Okay, so obviously the real reason she never gets the goggles back is because this game's story really isn't all that important. I mean, like, there is a story. The Super Merge goggles here malfunction and merge with a rabbit. Now he's creating these abominations that are causing chaos and you have to catch him before he tears the Mario world apart. But that's about it. The story is nothing special, but it gets the job done. There are also some thin plots to keep you moving through each world, especially World 3, where you're constantly being contacted by this definitely not a villain, Tom Fan guy. Tom Fan. There's definitely something about that name, I just can't put my finger on it. Tom Fan. Tom Pahan? No. There's definitely a joke there that I'm just not getting. Whatever, it'll come to me eventually. Thankfully, there is more to the writing than the paper-thin story. After all, this game may take place in Mario's universe, but Mario is only half of the title. The other half, the Rabbids, tend to be much less, serious in their games. That's not to say Mario games are super serious or anything, but the Rabbids games are much more comedic. Or at least they're supposed to be. It's a bit more subjective whether or not they're actually funny. Which is why I was kind of nervous going in. I didn't know whether to expect the jokes to just be the usual Rabbid nonsense. You know, their usual lol so random, blah type humor. And I was definitely justified in this worry, at least to a degree. There is some immature humor in the game that I could really do without, but it's not nearly as prevalent as I was expecting, and in fact a good number of jokes were actually really funny. But what's even more surprising than that is the amount of stuff Nintendo let Ubisoft get away with in this game. I mean, look at this. Get Jurassic in Gear? Did they really just make an ass pun in a Mario game? It's not even subtle. I only needed one person to point it out to me before I got the joke. The gameplay in this game plays very differently than any Mario game's gameplay has played before. After all, this is a turn-based tactical adventure game, which means you're not hopping around to stomp on enemies. Well, I mean you are, just not as much. For the most part, you'll be hiding behind cover to shoot at enemies. With guns. In a Mario game. Have I mentioned that this is kind of a weird game? Anyway, during the game, you will be picking a team of 3 characters that you will be using to fight Rabbids who have been merged with, things, I guess. I'm not entirely sure how being merged with a paintbrush turns a rabbit into this, but okay. At least he got off better than the balloon rabbit at the beginning. There are a lot of things I want to talk about relating to the gameplay, but I'm going to start with the character select screen. There are 8 playable characters in this game. Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Yoshi, and then a Rabbid version of each of them. And each of the 8 characters have a unique playstyle. For example, Luigi is a sniper. He's got very long-range weapons, but he has very low health, so you have to use his high mobility to your advantage to keep him away from enemies. Whereas Princess Peach is the opposite. She has short-range weapons that do massive damage with a wide spread, but they have steep fall-off, so if you want to use her, you need to keep her up close and personal with all of her enemies. Okay, well, it sounds like Luigi's good at long-range fighting and Peach is good at short-range fighting, so just bring both of them and maybe a healer and you're good, right? But unfortunately, this game has a few arbitrary rules for picking characters. For one thing, it does that really annoying thing where you have to pick Mario. Fine, whatever, Peach has a heal ability, so she can be the healer. So Mario, Luigi, and Peach would work, right? Well, actually, as it turns out, you also need to bring at least one Rabbid. So that means the first slot of your party is always Mario, the second slot is always a Rabbid, which leaves only the third slot for you to pick freely. Which means that Luigi, Peach, and Yoshi are all actually mutually exclusive. Whatever, fine. You know what? No, not fine. I'm not okay with this. This isn't Fire Emblem where you get like 15 characters per map, so it doesn't matter if I'm forced to use 1 or 2 characters. Because in this game, I only get 3 characters. And you're forcing me to use Mario and a Rabbid. Why can't I just use the characters I want to use? Why are you forcing me to use a specific strategy in a strategy game where I should be able to build my own strategy? It always annoys me when games do this. I want to pick the characters I want to pick. It doesn't matter what game. Super Mario RPG did it. Chrono Trigger did it. The Donkey Kong Country Returns games kind of did it too, but that's a different kind of game. But it doesn't, the point is, it doesn't matter, okay? I want to play as certain characters, and games don't always let me do it, and I don't understand why. If I want to play as a certain character or a certain group of characters, why can't I? Why can't you just let me? Maybe I don't like the Rabbids a whole lot, and maybe I just want to play as Mario characters. Is that really that big a deal? It's fine. It's fine. Let's just move on. There's another long-winded point I want to make about the characters anyway, so let's just move on. As I mentioned, there are 8 characters in this game, but you only start with 3 of them. The other 5 join periodically throughout the game, but the one I want to talk about is Rabbid Yoshi, who joins the party halfway through World 3, out of 4 worlds. Is it just me, or is that, kind of late to join the party? It's if anything, this is the absolute latest that a character can join your party before there's, no reason to joining the party. Because at this point, you have to already have a team comp that works. How could you possibly need a new character halfway through the penultimate world? What? Did you stumble through 2.5 worlds and now you get to this character and suddenly it's oh, perfect! Finally, I can fill that gap in my team comp that I haven't been able to fill for more than half of the game! And to make it worse, Rabbid Yoshi is a balanced character, so he can't even fill a niche role in your team because the only role he would have is already taken by the mandatory character. But do you want to know who's worse than Rabbid Yoshi? Here's a hint. There's a reason I specifically said, if anything, this is the absolute latest that a character can join your party before there's, no reason to joining the party. Because believe it or not, Rabbid Yoshi isn't the last character to join your team. The real Yoshi joins a full world later. That's right. Yoshi joins halfway through World 4 in a game with 4 worlds. I didn't even select Yoshi until the post-game, just out of protest. I like Yoshi. I wanted to use him, but he joins in the end game. I can't figure out a whole new strategy with a whole new team composition right before the final boss. What were you thinking? Who saw this and was like, yes, perfect, Yoshi should join right at the end of the game when everyone's only had 87.5% of the game to find some combination of the other 7 characters that form a functioning team. You know what? I'm harping on this too much. Okay, because the playable characters aren't the only problem with the characters in this game. I also thought the enemies were kind of disappointing. Granted, not nearly to the same degree as Yoshi, but I was kind of expecting the Rabbids to be merged with Mario enemies like Goombas or Koopas, but no, the villains in this game are just Rabbids. Which, don't get me wrong, I enjoy shooting the little vermin as much as anyone else would. I just thought it would have been cool if they at least resembled Mario enemies. Weirdly enough, I thought the bosses were going to do this. The first boss, Rabbid Kong, if you don't know who that is, then you've clearly not seen any of the trailers or the box art. Rabbid Kong is exactly what he sounds like, a rabbit mixed with Donkey Kong. And while Donkey Kong himself never appears and it's unclear if Rabbid Kong is literally a rabbit mixed with Donkey Kong or just a rabbit that resembles Donkey Kong, I still thought it was a cool boss, and I started imagining all the other possible combinations that this could lead to. Would the next boss be Rabbid Wario? Or Rabbid Toadsworth? How cool would that be? But no. I mean, they do have a few late game enemies that are Rabbid Mario character hybrids, but the bosses of World 2 and World 3 are completely original characters. I mean, at the very least, the World 3 boss is funny and creative, so I'm fine with that one. But the World 2 boss is just this icicle golem thing. Couldn't they have, at the very least, designed his head to look like a Freezy or something, instead of just Rabbid made of ice? Okay, I'm getting a little carried away here. That's more than enough complaining about the characters. Let's move on to some other parts of the gameplay. The gameplay is split in 2 sections. You have the exploration and the battles. The exploration is mostly running around the overworld, finding buttons to press to open the pathway forward, or looking for hidden treasure chests. There are the occasional puzzles to solve or mazes to navigate, and while fun, they're all pretty easy. In fact, you'll probably be able to solve most of the puzzles by simply pressing buttons at random. It's the battles that are the fun part though, obviously. I mean, this is a tactics game after all. The battles in this game are much more simplistic compared to most tactical games. For example, the hit chance in this game is determined by only 2 factors: weapon range and cover. If an enemy is in your range and not behind cover, you have a 100% chance to hit them. If the enemy is in your range but behind short cover, you have a 50% chance to hit them. Or if the enemy is behind tall cover, has a shield, or is just, out of your range, you have a 0% chance to hit them. Unless you use an explosive, in which case you can just ignore cover altogether. Of course, the same hit rates apply to you when the enemies are attacking, so it might be in your best interest to stay behind cover as much as possible. Unless the enemy is using explosives, in which case, good luck. Now, there is more strategy involved than just ducking behind cover and shooting enemies. A big part of the strategy of this game is actually figuring out how to maximize the amount of damage each character can do in just one turn. Each character has the ability to run into an enemy to deal damage during their move action. Some characters, namely all 4 of the Rabbids, can upgrade their dash to be able to dash multiple enemies in one turn, while Mario can get a different attack, a stomp attack that allows him to deal damage to an extra target if he can land on it after a team jump. The advantage of the dash attacks and Mario Stomp is that these attacks are applied during your character's move action, meaning that you can follow it up with your normal attack action. And dashing doesn't even affect your movement at all. As long as the enemy is within your movement range, you can run up, dash into them, and then run all the way back to where you started, or even keep going. Dashing into an enemy is literally a free action. There's no reason not to do it whenever you can. Keep in mind that Mario's Stomp does affect where Mario can land, so do be wary of that. I mentioned upgrades a couple of times there. What I mean by upgrades are actually the skills available for purchase in the skill tree menu. Each character has a different set of skills available, and over the course of the game, you'll start gathering these little power orb things, or glorbles as I like to call them, which you can use to buy new abilities for each character. Which upgrades you buy and when you buy them can greatly affect how easy or difficult each chapter becomes. And keep in mind there are only 1,500 of these little glorble things in the game, but if you wanted to fully upgrade even the cheapest character, you would need 1,610. Which means that none of your characters will ever be fully upgraded, which is kind of annoying to me. But you can always reset your skill tree for free later if you change your mind, so you don't have to worry about upgrading the wrong thing. In fact, it's a perfectly valid strategy to simply reset a character's skills to reapply them to be better suited for your current objective. Because while most battles have you trying to defeat a certain number or all of the enemy Rabbids, unless it's a boss or a mid-boss level, in which case the goal is to specifically defeat the boss, sometimes they do mix it up, and the goal is actually to get any one of your characters, so Luigi, to the end of a level, or to escort a guest character to the end of a level. In both cases, defeating any Rabbids at all is completely optional, though it will greatly improve your chances of making it to the end. And while I do think that they could have mixed up the objectives a little bit more, maybe have some levels where you have to defend a certain area for a certain number of turns, I still appreciate that they had some variety in the missions. In fact, Reach the Goal missions were my favorite. They really gave me a chance to let loose and come up with really creative ways to maximize Luigi's mobility to skip large chunks of the level. While the battles are fun and offer a lot of options and creative ways to fight your enemies, they're not particularly difficult. There was no point in the game where I struggled even a little to beat a chapter. This is actually a very easy game to finish. Keywords: to finish, as opposed to complete. Because there's more to do in this game than just beating all of the chapters. The first thing you'll probably notice is that you get a ranking every time you finish a battle. If you want an extra optional challenge, you can go for a perfect ranking in every battle. This requires that you beat every battle within a certain turn limit and that you don't allow any of your characters to be knocked out. This can add a lot of challenge, especially toward the end of the game where some chapters have multiple battles, one right after the other, so failing to perfect the last battle requires going all the way back to the beginning of the chapter, which is always a little disheartening. If you're ever having trouble getting a perfect on a chapter, keep in mind you always have the option of moving on and coming back later with the help of the Rabbids washing machine. If you do this, you get to replay a chapter using any new weapons or abilities you've gained since the first time you played it. This means getting a perfect on any chapter will eventually become trivial, even the final boss. But on the other hand, the only reward for perfecting a chapter is additional coins. So the longer you wait, the less helpful those coins are going to be. After all, getting an additional 300 coins when you're in the first world is very useful. After beating the game, however, it's not even pocket change anymore. Also, getting a perfect on every chapter doesn't factor into getting 100% on your file at all. The game only keeps track of 3 counters. The chapters you've finished, regardless of if you got a perfect or not, the treasure boxes you've found, and the challenges you've beaten. If you want to 100% complete this game, then you're going to have to finish each world and then revisit it to find the secret bonus chapter, as well as find all of the hidden treasure boxes. And if that weren't enough, when you revisit a world, you'll gain access to 10 new challenges per world. And these challenges are where the game actually does get hard. Some challenges will task you with defeating every mid-boss all at once, and some will force you to escort Toad through waves upon waves of Rabbids that would love nothing more than to stop you from doing that. For some reason. I mean, we're not really doing anything to them, so I'm not sure why they're trying to stop us. Maybe they just really hate Toad. Okay, so there are only a few more points. Let's just kind of go over them really quickly and then we'll wrap this up, okay? First, the camera. The camera is pretty annoying at times. You can't move it up or down, you can only pan it horizontally, and that's when the camera isn't locked in place altogether, which is a frustratingly high amount of the time. But the only time the camera will actually impede your progress is during the red and blue coin challenges. as the limited mobility of the camera can make it hard to find the red coins, so in order to find them you actually have to run in a direction to look for them. But if you pick the wrong direction to look, you won't have enough time to run all the way back and look elsewhere before the red coins disappear and you have to start over. Meanwhile, the blue coin challenges all take place in this weird bonus room dimension with the camera locked at this isometric angle, which makes it really hard to discern the depth perception of where you're standing compared to the coins and blocks you want to interact with, which is kind of ironic considering the whole point of an isometric angle is to give a 2D image the appearance of 3D. Next is the music. It's composed by Grant Kirkhope, so it's all really good. Special mention goes to the opera song, which, while entertaining, is no DK rap, but let's be real, he's never gonna top the DK rap. And finally, there is a local co-op mode. This mode gets rid of the arbitrary character select rules, which is really good, but I didn't have a chance to play this mode with any friends, and since there's no reward for beating maps, I didn't actually have the motivation to beat it by myself. And I think that's about it. So, overall, I get it! You reversed the names! It's Tom Fan. Tom! Phantom! Oh! It makes sense. I get it. I knew it was just gonna, pop in there. Okay. Anyway, so overall, this game is a bit more simplistic than most strategy games. Although there is still strategy involved, and more importantly, it's still a fun game. The campaign itself isn't all that hard, but there are challenges to help make up for that if you want more of, well, a challenge. But what I'd really like is if in the DLC, or maybe a future sequel, Ubisoft just goes wild with the characters. Give us more character options in the select screen, or have more Mario Rabbid hybrid monsters to fight. Because I really want to fight a Rabid Toadsworth, damn it. And one last thing before I go. They have already announced DLC for this game. In fact, the Season Pass is already available on the Switch's eShop. And while I really enjoyed the game, and I am leaning in favor of getting the DLC, I'm gonna wait and see what it actually is before buying it, and I would recommend everyone else do the same. Oh, wow, and I thought the Shantae video was a long one. Well, if you stuck with me this long, kudos to you, and thanks for watching. Can you believe this is the 4th video I've made in 4 weeks? Am I really the same guy that made one video last year and then did nothing for 4 months? But man, I am not used to being this focused on anything. If you like that video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and whatever. My name is Beardicus, and this has been the Beardicus Show. If you don't mind, I'm gonna go take a nap. See you guys next time, and goodbye.